It's Speaking with Gravity, and I am Curvin.
I'm Dee.
And we are a mental health podcast. We're focused on bringing awareness to our community, locally, nationally, and worldwide. I want y'all to remember, this isn't, I'm a therapist, but this ain't therapy. It's a podcast. And so today, as y'all know, we're going to start off with our Twitter discussion to kind of set us up for what we're going to be dialoguing about on today. Also, before I get into that, got to mention that our third co-host is not going to be with us on today. She is a businesswoman, so she handling business, but she'll be back with us. So, Twitter discussion for today, and to kind of set us up into what we're about to go into, which is talking about boundaries. So it was out there, it's placed out there. I really like this one. Stop apologizing for things you are not at fault for. Stop responding with "it's okay" when in reality it's not okay. You can be direct with someone and still be a compassionate person. Setting personal boundaries with yourself is self-care. And I'm a big proponent of that. I forgot to put the young lady. I'm gonna try to find it real quick. She is a therapist that I got that from. Awesome. What you think about that? Setting personal boundaries with yourself is actually self-care.
I 1,000 agree with sis in regards to the importance of having personal boundaries. I agree. When we have boundaries in place, we teach people how to treat us. I think the lack of presentation of boundaries allows people to dump their trash at our door. So shout outs to sis, whoever she was, for that amazing Twitter posting, and I hope that got shared 1,001 times.
Not 1,000 times, but it did get shared a lot. And,
okay.
And her name is Katrina Leggins.
Okay.
Her feed or her profile says she's from Oklahoma City. So,
okay, Queen. Shout out to Queen.
You know, I followed her, and she put out a lot of information with regards to boundaries. But you know, even with that one, I like that part about stop responding with "it's okay," when in reality it's not okay. You know, if somebody violating you or you don't agree with it, you just don't agree with it. Right. You know, y'all can still be kind, y'all can still be cordial, but if you don't agree, if it ain't okay, it's not okay.
That's right.
And then the other thing is, when you were saying showing people how to treat you, if you don't tell them it's not okay, how are they going to know? Right. I always call this out within therapy. You know, we expect for people to know things. Mm-hmm. When do they supposed to know it?
Right. Without communication.
You know, everybody isn't raised in the same household, right. So you don't know. My wife, bless her heart, she loved me to say good morning. I'm not a morning person. And good morning, I'm good morning.
Right.
Okay. And that just used to irk her, but I've gotten a whole lot better. And that's not to say I wasn't raised to say good morning, but I think I got away with it.
It wasn't prioritized.
Yeah, it wasn't prioritized. Well, I don't know. I might not want to say that because my mama hear that. She go, boy, I did tell you to say. Say, I might not want to say that, but I got away with not saying it sometimes. Okay. And, you know, it's 4 kids in the house, you move, whatever. But I found out that's one of her that's one of her things.
Right.
So I try to make sure I say good morning now to her. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead. So QD of the hour, quotable data: 95% of all decisions take place in the subconscious mind. This means that the vast majority of our actions and behavior occur due to brain activity that lies beyond our conscious awareness. And the reason I put that out there, I ain't have a stat necessarily for boundaries, right. But when you think about how 95% of all your decisions is in your subconscious, you want to try to become more aware, right, of who you are, what you like, your morals, your values, so that you will be able to set these boundaries. It's necessary for you to be able to set those boundaries. Just being conscious of that, or trying to be conscious of it. So, go ahead and introduce us. We already done started getting into it, but
Right. So following that Twitter discussion, boundaries are one of the ways in which we define who we are, how we interact with others, and what is acceptable. Establishing boundaries is one of the best ways to preserve your emotional energy and define who and what you allow in your life. Most importantly, you teach people how to treat you.
yeah, you had already said it.
I'm telling
you.
you.
What's boundaries for you? I know we just define it as who we are, how we interact with others, what's acceptable. But when you think of boundaries, what do you think about?
I mean, realistically, when I think of a boundary, I literally think of a non-negotiable for me. So an expectation or a standard for how I interact and I move within certain parameters. How I, what I accept, what I allow to occur within my spacing. And then, I think it's about, me being honest and authentic with myself. What is it that I value? And I think that's part of the challenge with people sometimes with boundaries, or I don't even say with people, but with myself at first struggling with boundaries was I didn't really know what was valuable to me because it was projected about how other people thought of me. But coming into a spacing where now it's about what's important to me. What do I love? What do I thrive off of? Help me to kind of establish and define what boundaries are for me and how to set those boundaries in place.
For me, I get what you're saying about what are non-negotiables and they based off of your values. But for me, I kind of look at it more along the lines of, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. You got a basketball court, and it's got out of bounds.
Out of bounds,
right?
Okay.
So that would be non-negotiable, right?
Right.
But within inside of that basketball court, you got a three-point line. Right. You can either you can stay behind that three-point line, or you can go in it. Right. You stay behind it, you're going to get 3 points. You go inside, you're going to get 2 points. You got the free throws. So those are not necessarily non-negotiable, but they make the game what it is. They make life what it is. They make life more manageable for me.
Okay.
So whereas I have boundaries set in place to make me more happy with who I am and what place I'm in this moment in time. Now, if you overstep that boundaries, then I respond however I respond. So sometimes I can respond in a cordial. A lot of times I can respond in a cordial manner.
Right.
But then there are those moments where I don't know how to respond.
Okay.
I have a wife and 4 kids. So, I remember going to a basketball game. I hope I'm not getting too far off, but I remember going to the basketball game and excited about, I was going to see the Charlotte Hornets. And this guy, like 3 rows back, just kept he didn't care what he was saying. He just cussing and just talking like this and like that. And it was like, man, that is not acceptable for me. But it wasn't to the point where I had to look back and say something to him. I remember my son said, "Dad, did you hear that?" "Yes, son, I heard it."
Right.
I heard it. And, I don't even think we had a discussion about it. But that's one of those things that's not necessarily non-negotiable.
Right.
Like I didn't feel like I had to get out the game in order to enjoy myself. But I'm cognitive of it going forward. Like, oh man, can I do this? Or preparing myself for how to respond in the future. What types of boundaries are there? For me, I'm just gonna pick. Most of the times when people hear about boundaries, they automatically think about relationships.
Right.
It's not just, and it's not just intimate relationships. It's not just boyfriend, girlfriend, 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 boyfriend, boyfriend. It is all encompassing. It's family relationships. It's friendships. It's work relationships.
Right.
It's church relationships.
Right.
How far do I want to go with regards to church, spiritual? I say church, but spirituality or whatever it is that you believe. Because a lot of times, whether we realize it or not, we're committing to various things. And that commitment can come into question on all ends, on your end, on the people that you're supposedly committing to or in this fight together with. And that's a perfect opportunity to establish your boundaries. I was looking it up about what types of boundaries, and one of them was intellectual boundaries. Man, I had never really thought about it, but it's real. Yeah, it's real. Everything is real. It's kind of staying in that vein of intellectual and spirituality. For me, my boundary for myself, I can't continue to ask questions when it comes down to spirituality.
Okay.
Or else I won't have none.
Okay.
Me and Mr. Winston, who's on the production, we were just talking earlier about the more you know, man. The more you know, the more it's brought to you. It can be confusing, or it can cause doubt, or either in you or whatever it is that you're choosing to believe in. And so you got to have those boundaries. So for me, intellectually, I just try not to get into too deep of an argument when it comes down to spirituality. I try not to dive too deep into it, questioning this, that, and the third. But that's my boundary. Yeah, right. That's not to say that I don't have faith in what I have faith in, but I just try not to get too deep. What are boundaries for you? Types of boundaries.
So, I think I want to first kind of back off of what you're talking about. Of course, we know boundaries is something I deal with daily when in communication with people, because I think people have heard the language, and so they want to practice it, but understanding how do we do that. So we talk about physical boundaries. We can talk about emotional boundaries. I like where you identify intellectual boundaries, because I think that's one that's important. Because I think when people think of boundaries, they think of elimination or avoidance, where we don't have to do certain things, or we don't want to do certain things. It doesn't mean that you can't be in an environment with someone. You just have to decide kind of like what's going to be your acceptable interaction. And so when I think about intellectual, you took it into, not wanting to ask too many questions, but I think it's just you being cautious about who you have that conversation with. Sometimes we can have conversations with people who don't have the same intellectual capacity that we have. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So if I'm having a certain level of conversation with you and you don't understand that, it's going to sound either foreign to you, or you're gonna discredit what I'm talking about, right? Because either you haven't been taught that, or you just don't believe in it, right? But your feelings and your attitude towards something doesn't mean that my feelings or attitudes towards that topic has to change. And that's what I think intellectual boundaries come into place, is you learn how to have conversations with people where they are. And so you kind of put people in categories. It's some people you can share your dreams with because they believe in dreams. It's some people you can't talk about dreams with because they only believe in what they can actually see right now. And so learning how to interact with people based on that, that's kind of what I learned. I learned that, it's kind of sad, but you do sometimes have to categorize people when you're interacting with them, and that's boundaries. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean I'm not your friend. It means I just can't check up with you every day. Right. There's some people I can talk to every day, and it don't bother me. It's some people that you hang up that phone with, and that conversation done drain. Like I woke up on a 100 that day. Yeah. And I talked with you, and and life is happening to all of us, but that whole conversation was about life events, stressors, all of this, and it was just like my morale, every attempt I try to, because I'm a strength-based person, so I always try to find the strength in a situation, and every strength you got to punch. Every time, you got to blow. And so for me, it's about learning. When I learned that about people, and I learned that that's where people's mind frame is, I no longer waste time trying to convince them to be something they're not ready to be. That, to me, is an intellectual boundary. I understand where you are mentally. and I move accordingly to that. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah,
though,
you did,
I
but
might have
I also with what you were saying about some people drain you. I drained you. Some people drain you. If we're not careful, we're therapists, so we're taking on a lot, and we have to be even more careful how we move and who we engage with and who we interact with, because in a few short minutes or a few hours, we're dealing with other situations that we're gonna need that energy,
Right.
that good energy, I should say. And so, yeah, we always have to be a master of boundaries to some degree. And then, intellectual boundaries. You got sexual boundaries. Here I go stuttering. But I think people can easily identify those. What's somewhat funny to me is we can identify so easily certain things and other things we can't.
Right.
Even when you were saying, you made a great statement. I should have just wrote it down. But it was from the standpoint of, you said there are certain people that you can't share your dreams with, right? So with that regard, that is you saying no to yourself on sharing this with this person and sharing that with that person.
Right.
So it's not just about saying no to this person or cutting somebody off. There's the other thing that we often get, is cutting somebody off. Mr. Winston, you got somebody at the door. So we getting real raw in here. We just go let everybody know. We recorded. But with that regard, man, we got emotional boundaries, we got material boundaries, you got physical boundaries, time boundaries. Time boundaries. I don't know what it is with y'all mothers. I don't know what y'all I don't know where y'all boundaries be at.
Travel lightly.
I'm including my mama. I'm including my wife. I don't know about my sister. My sister, she a different breed with that. Anytime I got to go somewhere with her, I know what time I want to leave, but she want to leave like 20 minutes before what I want to leave. I don't. Yeah, she one of those people.
So you talking about laters, or us late people?
Yeah. That would be my mama. That would be my wife.
Okay. And myself.
And a few other people.
Never on time.
But healthy and unhealthy boundaries.
Right.
And then when we're talking about unhealthy boundaries, I don't even think people think about that either. The unhealthy boundaries. Not having respect for other people. Not having respect for their values, their morals, and their thought process, their yes and their no's. That's where that unhealthy boundary come in, kind of just pushing your way into whatever it is that you want to do. If we stick to relationships, because that's where most people want to be. I'm trying to think of an example where it's an unhealthy boundary.
So, I think So I don't want to just stick to relationships, because, but I think when you talk about unhealthy boundaries, I think when we try to be everything for everybody.
Yeah.
Now, if we wanted to use this as a relationship, I think an unhealthy boundary depends on that individual, and it's kind of what you in that relationship is, and it's kind of hard, I guess an unhealthy boundary in a relationship could be you're in a relationship with someone, and you all live together, but your family and your friends, they show up anytime they want to, however they want to.
Yeah.
They don't leave.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They come in, they take stuff, they borrow stuff. Like, that to me is an unhealthy boundary, because before this may have been your man cave, but now this is a shared spacing. So I think of that as an unhealthy boundary, but it can be anything. But I think that's the challenge sometimes, is that we can easily identify that, like you said, as an unhealthy boundary. But when I'm having conversations with people, a lot of times when I look at unhealthy boundaries, it's the unhealthy boundaries that's with mama that people can't handle, right? The unhealthy boundaries with brothers and sisters that people can't handle. Like, because we grew up with people or these people helped bring us up, we don't feel like we have a right to have boundaries with them. But that's the biggest hopes in America. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to put boundaries with people.
Everybody.
Every
You know
what
single
I'm saying?
person.
Because
even your kids.
Even your kids.
Yeah.
Like, it's sometimes where, I have to tell my son, today is a boundary day. We not doing it today. I do woo sign. But really finding that and being okay with it. For an example, I had a recent interaction with a young lady, and her and I talk often about like family boundaries, and so we talk about things that certain family members may do that are disturbing for her. And she was like, the whole cultural thing, especially within our culture, is family, and I was like, family is family. But family has to have standards, too, with how we interact with people. And so putting that in perspective, like, somebody saying something or calling your phone every day with mess or putting your name and stuff, you got to put yourself in a boundary. It's okay to not answer that phone. It's okay to say, you can call me, but don't call me with what he say, she say stuff. And so I don't know how I got off on this tantrum, but...
No, but that's important because... again, going back to what we've been saying, you got to know your value. Right. You got to know what's important to you. When I think about that, the example you gave about family coming in and out, right? So, my grandmother, her house is open. Like you just go in there. Nah, don't pop up on me like that.
Right.
Don't just pop up on me. That's a boundary for me. And if you pop up on me and I'm not in that moment to accept you, I may meet you at the door.
Right.
I may talk to you outside the door and you not actually come in.
Right.
I'm not my grandmother. But you got to be you have to be confident with yourself and know that this is important to me. This is my moral. This is my value. This helps me have a peace of mind or happiness.
Right.
And, that can't, like you say, it can be difficult because we always say it's easier to do it for your homegirl, your homeboy, your friends. But when we're talking about mama, now I'm not, if my mama knock on the door and I don't feel like she's still coming in. Now that one I'm just gonna have to. I just got to chop. I just got to take that one. Just chop that one up. Cause mama gonna always be able to come in. But even with you were saying in relationship also, one person's family might be closer and want to just kind of come and just stay and not have any time limit. Well, another one wants people to only be there for a couple of hours. You have to discuss that.
Right.
And if you're going to be in a relationship together, it's okay to have that conversation and come to a compromise, come to a conclusion. If you don't come to a conclusion in that first go round, come back at it again. Right. Hang it up and come back at it again. But you're going to have to come to a conclusion or else it's going to be a point of contention. And it can actually spill over into some other stuff. That's what people don't realize. Like, this boundary right here, if you don't set it in this one aspect, it can spill over into something totally different. Right. So, before we kind of get off too far off on it, let's get them some tips for being able to set boundaries.
Okay.
So some tips that they can have, and we've already been saying a lot of them. One that I want to say is listen to your emotions. Listen to your, what makes you uncomfortable. Where are you resentful? That's probably real key.
Right.
Where something happened to me and now I resent it. It's coming back to me. And in this particular relationship, I feel some type of way because you did this or you always do this. Kanye West, the documentary, he always felt slighted. In an interview with Nori on Drink Champs, the podcast, he was saying how he would get into an argument with Jay-Z and Tata, which is one of they homeboys, he would get mad at Jay-Z and get mad at Tata at the same time because he was like, they never believed in me. And I didn't forget that they didn't believe in me from the beginning. So that's a resentment that he got. Like, don't not believe in him.
Right.
Again, we were talking earlier, and we were talking about the interview with Sway. He's probably upset because somebody is not believing in his power. Mm-hmm. The influence that he have, not only in music, but in fashion and in other areas. But anything that you're resentful of, listen to that.
Right.
There's a reason why you resent that. There's a reason that you feel some type of way. And then just stop it. You know, mm-hmm. If I feel some type of way when this happens to me, that I can't be around those people. I got to let those people know that are doing it to me. That ain't cool.
And I think you bring about so much in the end when we're talking about these things. It's important to really know your emotions and recognize what those is. But you are, like you mentioned earlier, you got to be able to communicate that, right? Yeah. So that becomes a boundary with you, that when you recognize that, how do I communicate that to people? Now, when I communicate that to you, I eliminate misinterpretation. Right? Because you have the opportunity to ask questions. That's how we formulate. Like you said, you got to come. We got to have this conversation at some point. Either we're gonna have it now, or we're gonna have it years down the road, where we've allowed time and resentment to build. So we're talking about going into what I feel like it's one of the other boundaries is being assertive in your communication and not being passive. Sis said it earlier. It's okay to not be okay, but you gotta say that. You know, the way you talking to me, the way you moving with me, the way you interacting with me, it's not cool. I can go back to an example. When I get to laughing a lot of times, if you're ever around me, I tell your shoulder up, right? And my hand, my hand, I ain't no light girl, so my hand kind of heavy. So I had a home girl one day, it was something that was hilarious to me. Well, I hit on her shoulder and she was like, with all due respect, so, like you can laugh, but don't hit me no more. Like for real, And I was like, I'm like, man, we for tripping. A minute I had to get offended. I was like, sis really trying to come off on me. But when I go back to it, that was her boundary. I'm entering her space. Yeah. Why is my intent is not to come off on her? I ain't know, what I'm saying? She feel like Mike Tyson over here trying to box her or something, so she had communicated that to me. Yeah. So now in the back of my head, every time I get to laughing and I'm with her, I still remember that conversation. That was like 7 or 8 years ago. I still remember when she said to me that day, sis, don't do that no more. You know what I'm saying? So consciously, she communicated it, and we never had the issue. And for a minute, I had to check myself because
you felt some
type of way, but that's her boundary. You know what I'm saying?
And it was your right to feel some type of way.
It was.
But you have to decide,
that is.
Am I going to respect this person's boundary? Am I going to respect how much I want this relationship?
I tell people that every day. Yeah. You have a right to feel how you feel, but your response is what matters. And so at that point, her relationship to me was more important than me being in offense, right? Because though, again, my intent was not to be aggressive. I wasn't intentionally trying to harm her. The reality is it made her uncomfortable. She did not like that. And so she communicated that with me. Out of respect for myself, I'm not going to do that to her, but out of respect for our relationship, I have to change. I have to be willing to make that type of adjustment to value. And that's, again, knowing what's important, demonstrating that type of level of respect for each other. And so when we come down to really about what boundaries and how they're healthy and how they're not, you really have to value and respect not only yourself, but the person that you're interacting with. Respect them enough to know, hey, this is okay for me, this is not okay for me. And check yourself when that boundary is being put in place.
When we did that episode with those guys speaking truthfully, that's a great exercise to just challenge yourself into what's important to me. Like we keep saying that, and people like, yeah, whatever. But when you put people on Front Street and you ask them what is important to you, you get in blank stare news. Right. They just looking at you like,
family.
What, yeah, they're gonna say something, kind of generic.
Cliche answers, yeah.
But and then for me, if I say family, I'm very close to my siblings. I'm very close to my mom. But when I say family, now my family consists of my wife and my kids.
Right.
My family before them, I'm talking about mama and sister and brother.
You're right.
So sister and brother and my mama then take a back seat to my family. Like, I know that. Now, if they didn't know that before today, they know it now.
Right.
But they okay with it because
They
my
understand
mom trained me like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, your family comes first and then everybody else. And then we play our role.
Right.
If I call my brother and I want to go link up with him, he's like, yeah, I'm spending time with the family. No hard feelings. It is what it is. But also with this, we see where the state of the world is either people are not setting boundaries or they're not respecting boundaries. And that's how we get to the point of everybody feeling disrespected.
Right.
Either you didn't set them or you didn't respect them. Right. One of the two. And if we can do that, if we can get back to the place of, all right, I'm going to respect this person and what they have, or I'm going to actually listen to this person and how they feel, then we can be a better society overall. That was one of the another tip is just having respect for other people, having self-respect for yourself, and then knowing your limits. You've said that time and time again. We gotta know our limits in general, and then last but not least, I like when you when we were talking about it earlier about homegirl. You said 7-8 years ago that happened. Your mindset at that point was to think about it over the long haul, not just in that moment.
Right.
Because in that moment, I'm finna, all right.
Go off on yourself.
Yeah. You did me like this?
She back got them hands still.
But I don't know what you were thinking about, but for me.
Well, I do know what I'm thinking. She back got them hands. That's what I was thinking about.
In the past, if somebody had said something to me, I had thought about like our past relationship, whether they've been down for me, have they supported me in the past. Is this somebody I can count on? Do I want to keep that relationship? Right? If it's somebody that ain't really been there, I ain't gonna say I'm gonna disrespect them, but I don't really care. You get that I don't care attitude at that point. Like, okay, you don't like that, you ain't gotta worry about it. We got to be around each other though, boy. Right. That's when we get to the point where now we want to cut somebody off. Right. Well, was that person really valuable to you in the first place? But I don't know. If we can go on and on and on about this, on and on and on about boundaries in general. And we're going to have to come back to it when Ty here, maybe we got another guest, because I'm pretty sure they got something they want to add to it. Did you have anything you want to add to that with boundaries that you think we might have left out?
I think that's it. I think that's, like you said, it can go in different avenues, just throwing some simple examples and techniques and practice and skill sets that can be implemented daily to improve our overall mental health and well-being. So that's it.
If nothing else, I did want to read this. And this was another one. I could have read it at the beginning, but what is boundaries? And be aware of what is unacceptable. Normalize saying no. Do what is best for you. And know that it's not your responsibility to sacrifice yourself for others.
That's it.
It's not your not all the time. Got kids is your responsibility, but it's not your responsibility all the time. But that being said, set expectations and or respect expectations. Boundaries. I said expectations. Set expectations.
Boundaries are expectations and standards.
And respect them. So, that being said, we're coming to an end here. Subscribe to Speaking with Gravity on our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram. We'll put it in the show notes. For your event needs, check out 6-1 Event Rentals. They got a 360 booth. Did she say they got red carpet too?
They do have a red carpet.
They got red carpet too. Okay. She probably out there doing something now with 6-1 Event Rentals. Need a resume updated? Holla at D. That contact information will be in the show notes as well. And don't forget that Gravity Counseling Group provides a BIPOC wellness group every fourth Monday of the month. And shout out to Mr. Winston for holding down the audio and visual production. Check him out on winstonjstewart.com. Thank you for taking the time to listen. You could be doing anything right now, but you chose to listen to us, and we appreciate that. Remember, we're therapists, but this ain't therapy. It's a podcast.